Special thanks go out to Flight Kings NYC, B-Dub.
Making it happen.
It was epic. I thank you for making that happen. Babe, you are the real MVP for thinking about doing that and actually being able to pull it off. I want to thank you guys for continuing to show me love and support. And although I took some time off to enjoy my children, you guys still kept subscribing and you still kept watching my videos. The views kept going up. And that's why I want to do stuff like this with integrity, so you guys can come here and find something to absolutely enjoy. I could have put shorter videos out, I could have put other stuff out, but I just wanted to do it with integrity. That's what I want this channel to be like. And I know everybody says, don't always expect perfection. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to be my best every time. That is what I want to give you guys. So thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So you guys saw me walking into the hospital, and then you guys saw the outcome, right? Which was when Luka was born. But what you didn't see is my birthing experience. So I've had both a vaginal and a C-section birth, and we can discuss in another video the difference, the pros and the cons of both. But what I will say is that this last one was quite the experience. So let me break it down. When I walked into the triage, I was placed in a very comfortable room, comfortable bed, and I was put to lay down, and I had to have a COVID test. I had to have the anesthesiologist come and put in a line for my IV. I might not be speaking in the correct medical terms for those nurses or doctors that might be watching my channel, but you guys can figure out what I mean. And then he had to come take blood from me. So for some strange reason, in pregnancy, you are emotional. So I just felt a little bit like you feel just violated a little bit in pregnancy, because people are tugging at you and pulling at you in all which ways, and you have really no time to process it. You're just so vulnerable, and everybody can come and pick and probe at you at any point in time. It's very uncomfortable. So when I was there, my husband was in the room with me, and we were just talking. The lady came and she told me what she was gonna do, and then proceeded to do it. But while she was talking, she was removing the sheet to put her hands under my shirt to tie the monitor onto my belly. Obviously, she touched a couple of other things that were in the way while she was doing that, and I was just like, ugh. And then she proceeded to check my hands to see where she or the anesthesiologist can give me a stick. Now, she ended up bringing the anesthesiologist to do it because I told her I was a hard stick, which I am. So when that happened, he came in the room and I was exposed. Obviously very, very uncomfortable because he is a he, Anyway, I just had to suck it up. And then I was very frustrated with the fact that I had to take a COVID test. I did not feel like having to be picked and probed at any more than I already was. So once that got done and I was negative, they proceeded to come and dress me so that I could head into the operating room. At that point in time, I felt no nerves, no anything. I just was like, all right, I give up. This is the process. It has to be what it has to be. They walked me over to the operating room, and the room itself was very intimidating. Lots of computers, very cold, lots of wires, not set up to give birth, so to speak, from what I was thinking it would be like, what the images I had in my mind. They proceeded to put me on what I guess was a bed, but it was very thin, very narrow, and also cold. And I had to sit down and obviously arch my back this way so that they could give me the spinal, which is, it stays for two hours as opposed to an epidural that is gradual and stays longer. And so the anesthesiologist was kind of very cold. He was very much pushing my back, you need to bend some more. And if you notice in the video prior to this one, I was quite large. And if you know me, I am a small frame. But I couldn't bend anymore. But just him pushing my shoulder and me already being picked and probed at in triage, I was just like, oh, come on, man. I was just slightly overwhelmed, but trying to keep it together. Also, at this point in time, they had separated myself and Charles, right? They went to get him in his outfit so that he can join us in the room. and they don't let you see them giving a person a spinal. And obviously I could feel it because in my previous pregnancy with Jace, I wasn't able to feel them giving me the epidural because the pain of the contractions was so much that me getting an epidural, I didn't even feel anything. But this time I didn't have any pain going on. I was just uncomfortable. So I felt when he was giving me the spinal, and I couldn't move or react to the pain. I just kind of had to stay still. And the nurses they had their hands on my feet, and two of them were holding my actual hands, which I don't take well to being restrained that way. So that was also very uncomfortable for me. So I just felt like I give up. Like what take me, you know? And I started to cry, but not like boohoo cry. I just started to tear up and stuff like that. At this point, once I was finished the spinal, the nurses proceeded to lift my feet onto that narrow table, and I could feel the whatever he put in my back traveling down my feet, and it felt like, you know, that feeling in your legs when you get pins and needles, and it was very uncomfortable, but not painful or anything. It definitely was super manageable. But once they put me to lay flat on my back, guys, I lost all control. It was gradual. I'd say it was gradual, but literally gradual over a period of a minute, which to people watching did not seem gradual. I lost all control of myself. I was hysterical. I did not like the feeling of laying flat on my back and not having full use of my limbs. It was mortifying, and I had not been in that situation but once before, and I freaked out then as well. But this time it was much worse, and I kept asking them to pull me up. I just needed my head to be elevated just a little bit, or the ability to pull my legs up. But because I was numb from the waist down, I could not bring my legs up, and they could not. They said, no, we can't bring you up. And I was just like, please put me to sleep. I started screaming. When I say screaming, not like, but I was like, please, I was begging and asking them to elevate me just a little bit. And then I asked them, where's my husband? So eventually seemed very soon, Charles bust open the door. And he came in and he was like, baby, I'm here. And then he proceeded to try to show me footage of Jace on the phone. And according to my doctor, I calmed down some, but not enough. And the next thing I remember after that was coming out of sleep and hearing them say, oh my God, look at this guy. He's fully baked and he's 8 pounds, 11 ounces. And she wanted to give birth to him naturally. That's what I heard. And then I kind of faded back off to sleep. And they were doing whatever they were doing to me until I became fully awake. Still very sleepy. But I missed the experience that I wanted to have because of that freak out that I had. I know that one of my parents is slightly claustrophobic. And I learned that I don't know what category to put myself in. I don't think that's claustrophobia. But I definitely learned that I cannot be put to lay flat on my back without having full use of my limbs. It is not for me. And so I kind of missed the experience of him coming out and them showing me, because it was supposed to be a gentle C-section. What the anesthesiologist did is that he gave me Benadryl and it knocked me clean out. Charles told me I was snoring. My doctor told me I was snoring, that I was not awake. So yeah, that is pretty much the extent of the experience. After that, when I was becoming aware of myself again, it was still very difficult to stay flat on my back, but I was saying prayers, and I was very much still feeling like I was heavily drugged, like very drowsy. So I was falling back asleep and waking up again, and falling back asleep and waking up again. And that is what got me through the 40-ish minutes or 30 minutes at that point in time of them stitching me up and putting me back together. So after they closed me up, they pushed my bed over to this waiting space where I had to wait with the nurse for a few hours to make sure that the spinal wore off correctly and that I was regaining good feeling in my feet. At that point, once that was over, they pushed me up to our private room where we were gonna stay with. Luka was with us for the whole time. He never left our site. They came and did everything with him right there with me, which I was very grateful for, because wherever they were taking him, they would have had to wheel me or push me. So I was glad that they did everything there. And once we got up to our room, I was given my meds every 6 hours until it was time for me to stand, and I stood up just fine. You know, from speaking to other C-section moms, I was expecting to feel like this excruciating pain when I stood up. My experience for C-section was actually not that bad outside of my literal panic attack that I had, but my recovery was manageable. I was on Motrin and Tylenol around the clock every 6 hours, and it was actually not too bad. My first stand-up was the thing that most people expected to be bad, and it was not. What was bad for me was actually my first pee. It felt like somebody has sliced my bladder with a razor, and my few pees after that was kind of stressing. But TMI, I'm keeping it real on this channel, guys. So yeah, not number 2, but number 1 was rough, and that was really it. My first stand-up, they told me it was going to be rough, and I was fine with that. Walking kind of felt like my organs were gonna drop out, I will be honest, but it wasn't painful. It was just like I didn't know how to maneuver, because I was thinking that, okay, something bad is gonna happen here. I actually missed a round of meds because a nurse actually came in a shift change, and she put it on the table and didn't actually give it to me in my hand and wake me up to actively take it and see me take it, which is what the other nurses had been doing. So I actually missed a round of meds.
You're fired!
And, you know, I felt some pain and discomfort, but it was not as excruciating as I expected it to be. I spent the Friday in the hospital. Luka received all his tests, and on Saturday, we were discharged. And I was up and walking on the same day that I had the C-section, and I had my C-section. He was born at 11:52, and I was up and walking before 11 o'clock p.m. So yes, that is the extent of my birthing experience with Luka, with the many details. In the video prior to this one, you guys would have noticed a box that one of the nurses were carrying while she was walking me over to the operating room. And I get to show you what I did with my placenta. I actually got my placenta encapsulated, and I have a little bit of footage of the process and the benefits that will be listed here. They're endless, and I actually feel like it worked. And I also have like a small little keepsake that they did with Luka's umbilical cord that I can't wait to show him as he gets older. That was a part of this experience that was also very thrilling. But yeah, I am so happy, like I mentioned before, that I was able to birth a healthy baby and be healthy myself, especially at my age. I know people don't feel like it's old, but it is older for me to start having kids, or 33, 35. But the experience was one that gave me my beautiful boy, and yeah, you guys will meet him soon. I will make sure that he comes on and shows his beautiful face at some point soon. Much like Jace, Luka had a complication. I was very defeated in this moment because I did everything to avoid him having to go through the same thing that Jace had to go through, because when your emotions are that high and your hormones are all over the place, it's hard to compose and contain yourself in moments where you don't know what the outcome will be. So Luka had ABO abnormality for a second. They had to monitor it for like the first 2 weeks of his life, His numbers, Jace was straight jaundice. Let's just give this disclaimer. I might not be speaking in the correct medical terms. Luka did not need or end up getting phototherapy. Jace had higher numbers than him. He was actually jaundice, so he had phototherapy for 2 nights. But Luka, we did go back to the hospital because his numbers were high, but not high enough to get him admitted. And in between myself and Charles, our blood type, I don't know if to say it clashes or whatever it is, but with his blood type being what it is and mine what it is, and Jace's, he ended up with ABO abnormality. He is fine now. It doesn't pose any risk to him now that he has overcome this within the first 2-3 weeks of life. Thank God. We are so grateful. But it was, for me, I was not feeling happy when I brought him home, and I had to go back like a couple days later because I thought that we were in the clear once we left, and days passed, like 4 or 5 days passed, and everything was fine. I did notice though, because in the beginning he hardly opened up his eyes, but I did notice when he did open up his eyes, because he was always on me breastfeeding, when he looked left or right, that there was some yellowness, and I brought it to the attention of the pediatrician because she actually missed it. But this is the part of me that works really well for me and against me when people feel like I could be extra. The part of me that is extra was looking all over my child from head to toe, in his ears, everywhere, and I was the one that noticed the yellowing of his eyes. And I showed it to his dad, and I brought it to the pediatrician's attention. And so that's how we were able to be sent back to the hospital, just to make sure. And he had several tests. The first couple days of his life was very rough, where he had to get stuck in his heel, and they're dragging that small cylinder over it to get the blood to come out. My baby squealed. It was so hard for me to listen to and hear. I felt so bad and so helpless, and as you can imagine, I did not quite handle it well. But he is better than ever, fully healthy, such a big boy. He is 16 plus pounds at this point in his life, which is quite large. He is in the 91st percentile for weight, so he is doing all right. He is a guzzler. From the hours after birth, he was consuming 4 ounces of milk, so you guys can only imagine. And that is the upside. That is the sunshine that came through the rain cloud on that day. And yeah, so that's just to offer you guys a little bit of insight about who he is and how he is. Such a feisty boy, very passionate, already very, very aware and alert. He can literally follow me across the room with his whole face, much like Jace. He was born lifting his whole head and like half his chest to beneath his breasts. Very, very strong. He at this point is grabbing things and bringing it to his face. You guys would have seen in the video prior to this one that he was holding his bottle. He literally grabbed it and pulled it to his face. So he is thriving. Both of my boys are. So I give God all the glory. We are grateful and enjoying this moment in our lives with our children. Yeah.